Hey everyone, welcome back to Elevate Your AIQ, your home for insightful conversations on human-centric AI readiness, talent transformation, and the future of work. This is Bob Pulver, and today I'm fortunate to be joined by Juan Garcia, co-founder of Tuio, a fully digital insurance company based in Spain that's reimagining personal lines of insurance for a generation that grew up buying everything online. Juan and I dig into how Tuio is using AI not just for operational efficiency, but to fundamentally rethink how insurance is underwritten, marketed, and managed. From their proprietary claims intelligence system they call Watson, to building a subscription-style model that actually serves digitally native consumers who've long been overlooked by traditional carriers. We also get into the broader challenge facing enterprises today, why most AI pilots fail to generate real P&L impact, and what it looks like when you're actually getting it right. If you're curious about what responsible, human-centric AI adoption looks like inside of a high-growth insurance tech that is disrupting a regulated industry, this is the episode for you. Thanks for listening. Let's go talk to Juan. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. This is Bob Pulver, your host. Elevate Your AIQ is in full swing in 2026, and I am excited for my conversation with Juan Garcia.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you being here and spending some time with me. I'm really intrigued by some of the work that you guys are doing at Tuio, and I want my audience to hear all about the great innovation that you're driving there. And so I thought we could just start off with you just talking a little bit about your background and what led to you co-founding Tuyo.
Sure. So I'm an engineer by trade and telecommunications. I did work as a telecommunications engineer, unlike many engineers that go straight into finance or consulting. Then I did head into consulting after a few years when I just realized that if you, like having my destiny ruled over, if you push the button, the thing worked or it didn't, then yeah, it didn't sit too well. And I went to the dark side to consulting, strategy in particular. After a few years, I was running the new ventures team in a telecommunications company here in Spain, it's Orange, at Orange, which is all across Southern Europe. And at that point, we built what was Orange Insurance. We were building an insurance company to just take profit of the different conversations with our customers. And I mean, it was so difficult. It was so cumbersome to just get that thing off the ground that I just realized that then and there that, I mean, I am sure there's something that through technology you can do to improve this industry, right? So I got an insight, and after a few years, I got in contact with my co-founders, Jose Maria and Assis. Jose Maria used to work in BCG, consulting for the industry actually. So he got also that insight just from different lens, but similar insight. And Assis was doing a lot of data and technology for different, more in the finance side, but more for all sort of different industries. And we all came together and we figured that we were sure, we didn't know what at that point, but we were sure there was something to do in insurance with technology. And yeah, rest is history, and we're here today.
I think that what a lot of people don't necessarily think about is they're assuming, based on headlines and things that they read, they assume that it's the technology companies that are, doing most of the innovation in the AI space, but it's people that have, either personal experiences or, like you said, some of your consulting background and some of the industries that you happen to work in. You really start to understand where some of these problems exist in more traditional, legacy industries, and it's those kinds of pain points that people just get interested and excited, and they feel like this is something that this is a place where I can make an impact, right? And this is a place where I can cause some healthy disruption, I suppose, is one way to think about it, right?
For sure. I think we see, and a lot of, as you said, a lot of the headlines are going on the new OpenAI, the new Microsoft, or the new Google LLM, or the new model, and how powerful it is. But like models by themselves and the horizontal layer of that are just, I mean, it's one part of the value unlocking of AI. But I think trying to have vertical solutions, to me, it's where most of the value is going to be in the future, at least for different industries. And I'm just seeing it by the other day or a month ago, OpenAI announced that they were going to have this consulting arm that they will help all different companies to introduce their models into their business processes. Because I think fundamentally AI is something that makes you rethink the way you do whatever you do. And I think that's probably going to be different industry per industry for sure, but even company per company, because not all not all of us have the same process. And I think, to me, I don't know if it's the larger part of the value, but a lot of the value is going to be in how you can build, or how can you rethink your business, taking AI in a central role, because it's just, you need to do a lot of thinking on organization, on processes, on the people that you have, on all the different incentives that you put in your business. AI it is indeed just a technology, but the value is probably in using that technology to just propel your business. And then that's a lot of tough questions and a lot of tough work that we all have ahead of us.
I think you're hitting on where the real value is going to appear for enterprises. So people are complaining, oh, it's not going to be as effective inside enterprises. There's too many, hallucinations or whatever excuse they might have. But to your point, it's getting into the weeds, as we say here in the States, getting into the weeds and understanding your specific processes, leveraging your proprietary data in a lot of scenarios. That's where the unique, value is going to be experienced within some of these companies as you take a sort of vertical approach, like you were saying, as opposed to just these horizontal. Some people use the analogy of spreading peanut butter all over all these use cases. I'm not a peanut butter fan, but I understand the analogy. But yeah, you've got to get really specific, and that's where you're going to get the most value. So I know we're going to dig into some of that over the course of this conversation, but I did want to just take a step back and hear a little bit more about Tuio and the markets that you're serving, both demographics and from a geographic standpoint, and just kind of unpack that.
Sure. We built it because we had this insight that we could do something, and we started looking at what was going on in the industry. We just realized that there was this market segment that was completely underserved. And it's we look at customers from 25 to 55, give or take, because these frontiers are not really like a completely closed frontier, but more or less you can get my point. And when you're looking at the market, you see these customer segments, which I am part of. We are used to just consume content from Netflix. We buy our stuff on Amazon. We even buy groceries online. So when you were looking at the insurance industry, or at least in Southern Europe, and Spain in particular, we couldn't see any value proposition that was actually catering to these customers, and it was kind of puzzling to us, because it was so clear to us that there was a distinct customer segment there, because they behave quite differently from previous generations. And when we started looking at the generations, we realized that it was also a problem from the industry side, not just from the customer side, also from the industry side. There was something, and what we found is that these customers behaved eminently differently from previous generations. They are fully online. They tend to browse a lot, price comparison websites. They do have more financial literacy in terms that they know the coverages they're buying, they know when to use them, they know the exceptions, they know the limits. So basically, they are way more informed, both in terms of pricing, because they compare, and in terms of coverages. And that puts a different type of pressure on the P&L of insurance companies, because when customers are informed on your price points, then it puts pressure on your pricing. Yeah, you're starting to company price. But when they are more informed on your coverages, they tend to use the coverages more, because they know what the product is for. So you also get pressure on bottom line. So what we found is that all this generation is just barely profitable or non-profitable for these companies, and it's mostly subsidized by the older generations, that they tend to use the product less. They see price as a quality proxy in a way, and they are not bothered to pay a little bit more. So what we saw is that this is a customer segment that feel underserved, but also it's kind of underserved because no company is going to start investing on a customer segment that is currently not profitable, right? So we saw there a problem in both from the industry side and the customer side. It's like, we probably can do something here. And when we started to further dig in, we thought like, so what we want to be the company that caters to their basic insurance needs. And I don't mean basic in with disdain. I just mean your house, your car, your pet, your term life. So basically your most common product lines. So we do personal lines, as I said. We started with homeowners, and then we followed by term life, which is not really a personal line, but still, it's just very close to homeowners with the mortgages and everything. And then we released pet health. And we are about to have car as well, which is a whole completely different game. And then we'll have probably travel as well by the end of the year. So yeah, quite a few business lines. And I mean, it puts a bit of pressure on the company, but we think we kind of have the knack on how to get customers with a whole from a whole life cycle with us, just from their home and then their term life and then their car and then trying to get these, all trying to meet all these their basic needs.
Yeah. I mean, as I think about that, I mean, I think about the insurance I have here in the United States, and I've got I must have 8 different policies across those product lines, right? Like not in one specific area, but I think about, yeah, I have homeowners and I'm not sure if I have flood insurance, but I have something tacked on to my homeowner's insurance. I have an umbrella policy. I just added my daughter, my 17-year-old daughter, to my car insurance, which caused the car insurance to double. And I'm in New York, and New York insurance is notoriously high. So it's like another car payment for the insurance. But then, I have life insurance and I have a bunch of other policies. And so, yeah, if I had a really good experience and I had transparency and trust from one particular provider that was able to offer all of that, I mean, to me, that simplifies my my life and also gives me it's like being a CIO at an organization. The fewer vendors, the fewer, cracks in my foundation, in my infrastructure, and the easier it is for me to, just have a short list of people or phone numbers that I need to call if I have a problem. Or to your point, go online and chat with someone through, digital channels. So in theory, I mean, I understand everything that you're trying to tackle, and it makes sense to me. And also the price sensitivity. I mean, I feel like as I'm getting up there in age myself, I think about, just like I said, the simplicity and the trust that you put in with one particular vendor. It's just one less thing to worry about, and everyone needs to reduce their anxiety these days if something goes wrong.
Yeah, yeah, you're producing a podcast, so I would say even if you're pushing age, you're still in those ones that are just not one side or the other from the line. But yeah, I mean, the way we thought about it is that we think about insurance as digital product companies would think about it. So what we did is we switched a little bit the mantra in Spain. In Spain, whenever we started, they told us that insurance is not bought, it's sold. And we were thinking like, what if you could do it so easily, so transparent, and so digital that someone actually would feel confidence to buy it, just as we buy Netflix or we purchase stuff on Amazon. Because obviously now we forget about it, but in 2005, it wasn't that obvious that you would buy a book over the internet and you receive it on your mail, right? So it's one of those same switches that we're trying to produce here, and we've put let's say the opus on the customer to make sure that he understands what we're selling and he can buy it on his own. That's the way. That's the way with all these trying to try. I mean, to change this mindset in Spain. That's the key insight for us, is to like how we make this customer segment that's currently not profitable, right? And we started thinking about digital technologies, digital platforms, and onboardings, and we're more and more thinking about how marketing is a core competency in that way, because you don't have salespeople anymore. You just have, it's a customer, its own salesperson, and yeah, that's the insight that we got and the way we were working on, and we have this saying within the company that we won't ever, and I don't know if this is a practice in the US. It kind of is in Spain. We won't ever disguise the phone number, so whoever wants to call us or contact us, they will always be able to do so very easily. What we have is that after every call, we not again because of AI, but it used to be at the very beginning. We treat this call as an opportunity to understand why a customer felt the need to call us and what wasn't clear from all the different websites and the onboarding process and the coverages and the way we explain the different coverages and the capitals and everything else. And if you think about it that way, then you just realize that simplicity is key in the business model that we're trying to put in. But simplicity is quite hard to actually get, right? It's just very difficult.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me a little bit about, some of the ways that your team has built some AI, solutions for, like you said, some of it could be, onboarding or just, packaging the right offers and product lines across, based on the customer's needs. But and how you think about it across, say, strategy, marketing, operations, whatever you want to sort of dig into. I'm just curious how, some of the specific use cases and some of the specific things that you've built.
Sure, I'll go chronologically because I think it gives a bit of context and illustrates a little bit of what we think that companies are doing wrong, and it explains all these reports that you see online that only 5% of companies have seen results from their AI pilots and all this and all that, and we did start like all of them. We started like, oh, there's this great technology, and this is, I don't know, 2023. There are all these great technologies. There's this thing called ChatGPT 3.5, which seems like ages ago, but it's not. I mean, it's just 2 years ago. And we started thinking like, what if we can scale? And we realized like most of the, specifically over text, most of the things that we were being asked are just, can you explain me this coverage? Is this thing covered? And these are things that LLMs do quite well. Even at that point, even if it had hallucinated quite heavily, it was something that we realized, oh, this is something that probably this new technology can do very well. So we started building, as everybody else, text chatbot or a text agent, as I should call it now. And we started building that with the complexity that it had in 2023. But in 2024, when we were doing a strategic plan for 3 years, Jose Maria, one of my co-founders, he just realized that.
Hi, I'm Cole Napper, host of Directionally Correct, the #1 people analytics podcast in the world. Come check out our podcast that dives deep into topics like people analytics, workforce planning, and talent intelligence, helping leaders across the globe navigate the future of work with insight and a little bit of fun.
We were doing something that didn't have, I mean, it did have impact on the business, but it really tackled only around 10% of our cost base. So in insurance, when you look at your total cost base, cost to serve is just about 10%. So efficiency will only take you so far in terms of your cost to serve your customer. But if you look at marketing plus claims, it's about 85% of your cost base, which is, I mean, sizable. So even if you can get efficiency of 50% on that 10%, it's only like 5 percentage points of profit margin that you will be adding to your company. But if you can improve the way you deal with your marketing, you deal with your claims, then I mean, even if you get 10%, you're just getting more percentage points of profit margin just by chasing 50% efficiency, which, I mean, 50% efficiency is a lot. So this is not, you're not going to take it, you're not going to be able to do that with AI or with whatever if you have a very streamlined operational business, right? So we started thinking, what does trying to chase this 85% means? And to us, it meant switching from chasing cost to serve efficiencies to using AI to make better decisions. And we started figuring out that we will only be using it, well, only, it's not bad. We will be using AI to just further propel 3 levers, which is growing efficiently, underwriting smarter, and managing claims more effectively. And we started building and thinking on what can we do around those 3 different levers and how can we do it better, right? So at that point, with that insight, we started looking at our existing processes, and we just realized that bolting AI on our existing processes wouldn't really work. It's just not as powerful if you just have an existing process and you just use AI to do whatever. So we started thinking, or Jose Maria started thinking, and he finally ended up with this slide. It's really amazing. It's just at the very bottom we have data, then we have business processes, and then we have all the different interfaces. And before, interfaces used to be your apps and I mean the screen-based interactions, right? Because the only thing that there was on the other side were people. But now you start thinking around, oh, how can I display all these processes and this data to agents that are not human anymore? So you use APIs, you use MCPs, You use all these different strategies, and then you have now on top of that you have the human agents and just people and agents. When you start thinking in that way with that stack in mind, then you start completely redoing your processes. And the first one that we tackled, obviously because the biggest, the largest, and it's very critical for your customers, for our customers, it's claims. And a lot of people have tried to automate claims, but automation in claims has always been very tricky because claims is not a process that's very deterministic. It doesn't really follow a straight line. It's not A, then B, then C, because it branches out because of the different coverages, the severity of the claim. Then if you have any fraud signals, you treat them differently, and then it branches out if you have third parties that need to go to the house of the customer. So the one insight that we thought that we could get from AI, because Gen AI in particular, if we look at what it does really well, is it gets all sorts of different inputs. It just goes through them very fast, and then it gives you answers or suggestions. So with that insight, we thought like, oh, why don't we re-engineer our claims process? We put an agent in the middle, and that's what we did. We have these agents called Watson, like the Sherlock Holmes helper, and basically at every stage of a given claim, it just goes through all different inputs from the claim and outside of the claim. For example, it gets the other policies from the customer, or it gets previous behavior from the customer of different or the calls that we've had with him, because we have all that data in place, and then it goes through all that. And because we have this process for filing a claim, it's completely digital. You just pick the type of claim that you have, and then you tape a video or send us pictures what will happen, and it goes through all that data, and it basically reads everything, and it tells us, oh, so this customer had all this, and my suggestions to do is blah 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 blah. And for every suggestion we have a confidence interval, a confidence level. And some of those, if the confidence level is very high, for example, to have a stovetop that's broken and it's covered, and you see the picture doesn't have anything weird, it's like, okay, this is about 150 euros, and just go ahead and pay it back. And if not, it's just that, then that's something of a high confidence level, but it doesn't have that confidence level. We always have a human in the loop that reviews the suggestions. Sometimes it accepts it and just the claim continues, or maybe he rejects it, and then it's like, yeah, this is not right because all this and this and that. So we have a closed loop that we do to just re-improve the what's on with the new information, and the loop develops, and it evolves in a way. So that's what we're doing for claims, and I think it's quite. It's changed from thinking from trees, very deterministic and linear trees, to thinking about next best actions and suggestions, and that's how we think around claims now. We have this machine that thinks what is the best path moving forward, and then we accept it or we don't.
I have all these IBM memories flooding back to me as you're describing that story. They used some similar terminology, and obviously IBM Watson was their big, AI solution. Still is their big AI solution. But I totally appreciate the context that your Watson is not named after a founder of a big company. It was Watson in the context of investigative, detective work, the Sherlock Holmes reference. So. But what I also think about is, I was working closely with IBM Research when we moved from some of those expert systems, the decision tree, very elaborate, decision trees, into something that could actually sort of scout all those different paths and then figure out, like you said, what is the next best action that I need to take given all of the context and all of the data and the circumstances that I see. And then, of course, glad to hear there's a human in the loop. It sounds like with claims processing, even with all of that technology and the orchestration and the agency that Watson has in the process, it's far too sensitive to not have a human providing oversight and making sure that everything's happening as it's supposed to. And there's just so many variables and exception processing that may happen with different claims that you've got that human plus AI kind of collaboration to make sure that those get pushed through, not just appropriately, but within the confines of how you've structured this in the first place, which was how can we do this in an efficient way and think about this in the context of the higher value, use cases, as opposed to just looking for these marginal efficiency gains through automation that is going to have diminishing returns over time, right? You can only save so much cost and so much time, and then what are you going to do, right? I talk to people about that all the time. Well, you can start with automation, workflow automation, and those types of use cases if you want, but that's not really where the power of AI is. If you can do that and get those efficiency gains and reinvest some of that savings in other places, that's a perfectly legitimate sort of roadmap to be on in terms of your overall, AI strategy. But there's a lot more that goes into that AI strategy across people, processes, data, and technology.
Yeah, I mean, we all start on automation, and then you just realize, and that's why that you can do things more intelligently, and that's why I wanted to just get that switch, because maybe if we would have looked at claims from a pure efficiency standpoint, maybe we would be automating way more decisions. But for us, it's about making sure that we control costs, that we allocate. I mean, our people, which is it's our most valuable resource, are adding value wherever they are best at adding value, and not at looking at a 5-minute video and then going through all the pictures and then pulling the customer data from previous claims, or looking at how he navigated because we have different behavioral flags that we have from when a customer purchased their policy or whatever. I mean, that's not what they do better. Like what they do best. What they do best is actually when that is processed and that's summarized, then just like, oh, I think this and this and that, and are the way to go, and then they just look at that as like, no, I don't think this is good, and we probably do this, and that's why we've introduced these confidence levels depending on the type of decision, and there are some of the decisions that we will never automate. I mean, even in Europe, because of regulation, like negative decisions on a customer are not allowed. Even then, even if they were, we wouldn't have automated rejections, because that's not what you want to do, right? If you start from the standpoint that your customer is your most valuable resource, then I mean, sometimes our refusal is part of the business in insurance, right? Some stuff is not covered. Then you just want to give them the most humane treatment that you can, and that's where a person. We will always be better than a machine, and that's just that. So we make sure that our people have the time to do what they do best, and we have Watson for everything else.
No, that's great. I just want to dig into like the human-centric aspect that you're just talking about, making sure, human potential continues to thrive, and we let AI do what it does best and let humans do what they do best. How have you approached like the AI maturity, the AI readiness of your organization? I mean, I know you've got a decent percentage of the team that is on the technical side, I suppose, but do you guys run training and things like that to make sure that everyone is sort of AI literate, so they know how to interact, so they can put themselves in the shoes of the customer, as well as understand just how to effectively sort of interact with Watson and other agents that you might build?
So we don't have, and this is something that we've stumbled on. I mean, a lot of the things that I now explain seem very obvious in hindsight, but most of them we just stumble onto them. And this is one of those things that we didn't plan for training, and we don't do trainings. We don't do actual trainings, but what we do is we basically give you the option to just have whatever model and whatever AI that you want to use even for your own personal use. Like a lot of people now in the company have side projects, because now with vibe coding are just way easier to just build up, and even if just for fun. And I think that way is the way most people are getting more AI literacy in a way. It's just, we don't force them. We just give them the option to like, oh, there are all these amazing tools. We will just subsidize whatever you want, within reason, obviously. But you want Cloud Code, you got it. Even if you're a adjuster, it doesn't matter if you're not a coder. You can just have Cloud Code and display with it or cursor or whatever you think about it. And we've seen a lot because we think, and the thinking behind this was that we thought that ideas, like great ideas, would come from anywhere in the company. And now it seems obvious, but we only got that because we have with pet health, we have this veterinarian that's working with us. Is that his first office job? Because before he was a veterinarian, he wasn't like a normal office person. And ages ago, when he started playing with ChatGPT, he built a custom GPT, which is like now we call agents, but this is like the proto agent in a way, like a year and a half ago, to pull all the information that he was getting from the pet health claims, the dog history or cat history, the bill from the veterinarian, whatever has happened, the description, and he would run all of it through this custom GPT, and it basically would do half of the work. I mean, that's the proto Watson if you think about it, but only for pet health. And he just got probably half of his daily job automated. And this is not a coder. This is not ex-consultant. This is a veterinarian. And for him, the insight was so clear that we just thought, oh, I mean, these ideas are just not from us or from management to push down on. They're not very top-down in the ideas. I mean, we will have top-down ideas, of course, but if we don't do something like this, we will be missing all the bottom-up ideas from the people that are actually in the trenches every day. So what now seems like a very, very, very mindful policy, it just grew organically from the realization that, if you just give them these tools to people, you just don't know whatever it's going to come from it. More often than not, it's going to be positive for the company. So you may as well.
Yeah, no, I think that there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, part of it is you have created this mutual trust, right? Like you're giving them some of the tools, you're giving them some of the freedom to explore and to tinker and to bring their own, sort of personal experiences, either, before they got to the company or what they're seeing in their current role, and give them the ability to try to solve some of their problems. And if they get stuck, they've got other people that they can lean on that have more technical, knowledge and experience than they do. But just the fact that you've sort of, empowered them to take those steps and to sort of explore their own sort of curiosity, but layering on, the diversity of thought, and that's where, great ideas can sort of bubble up. So I totally agree. I mean, it should never be just sort of top down mandate. Here's what we're going to do, and here are your guardrails. I mean, we all need guardrails, of course, when we think about responsible design, responsible use. But I just think it's got to be really impactful to strengthening the culture at the organization.
Yeah, it does. Now even we're seeing popping up like a continuous meeting where every week on Wednesdays, I think it is, where like people are just sharing whatever they're building, and it is not even from Tuio. It can be from whatever, and it's just like you just want this kind of culture of people tinkering and experimenting and just sharing with each other, because in a way, if everyone is doing it, you just feel like you can do it as well, and then more and more people are getting all these projects off the ground, and you see some cool stuff happening, and even Cloud Code wasn't as widely used, for example, 3 weeks ago, and one of the coders started tinkering with it, and now we have this little agent called Manolito. In Spanish, it's just like a funny name because we thought we were fun like that, just to help, because he realized that we had a need of having a small coder just for very specific tasks that were really easily, but since they didn't have a lot of impact, they would be always further down the backlog. So this is just a tool for them, even for themselves, that is he built for themselves, where we can now, this is for Manolito, and all these copy changes and button changes, and maybe it's not this exact color or whatever. Before, they just would be there languishing for a long time, and now we have Manolito to do them, right? So yeah, I mean, you don't know where the cool ideas will come from.
I think it also
Hi, we're Meg and Amy from The Meg and Amy Show.
We're not only tech execs and big picture thinkers, we're also best friends.
We're curious learners. And on this podcast, we're challenging the status quo and activating the future.
And we're going to give advice about work and leadership, right, Meg?
You know, we can't help ourselves. But this podcast is about exploring possibility, not being right.
That sounds refreshing.
For more, tune in to The Meg and Amy Show.
I mean, we can talk a little bit about your, sort of, growth plans and, in other, regions and product lines and things like that. But it just seems like even as you think about the organizational, growth and think about the brand, it's the brand of Tuio as an employer. It seems like these are the types of things that, the younger generations are looking for, right? Where you encourage them to lean into their curiosity. You're encouraging, these ideas because I feel like, well, everyone has ideas as you alluded to before, but I think to be able to, take their own observations and take, the initiative that people have taken, even in school to think about, what could I do? Is this a viable idea? I'm learning, some AI, skills, even before I get out of, primary school or higher education. And so I have to recognize that these are the skills of tomorrow, right? AI is not going away. It's always going to have this sort of humans plus AI, pathway. And so I don't know, it just seems like, if I were if I were a young person in Spain looking for a job, I mean, it seems like you'd be pretty attractive as an employer to have all of those, characteristics, as opposed to, if I went to, any of my insurance companies in the US, I'd be like, I don't even know where to start in terms of like modernization of the technology and the experience. I mean, if anything goes wrong with the house or the car or whatever, like it's a complete, scramble to try to figure out who can help me. Do they have a live chat? Is it actually a modern chatbot, or is it going to be these, textbook, predefined, questions, and I have to follow menus and whatever, because that's almost an archaic, form of interaction at this point.
Yeah, it's unimaginable how 2 years is just completely. I mean, it's 6 months. It's like we don't even know where we're gonna be with this technology in 6 months. And just looking at 2 years ago is like it's one of those things that wow, we were building. That was. I mean, it would take us the first iteration of our bot, like a text agent. It took us like 3.5 months, give or take, and it was very difficult to maintain because yeah, there was no standards, no frameworks. LangChain that didn't even exist at the point. Context windows were very small. There was no memory, no concept of pictorial databases. So it was very difficult. And even at that point, hallucinations was a huge issue. So if you wanted to put something into production, you needed to make sure that it wouldn't hallucinate. So yeah, now we built it. Our second iteration, which was basically re-engineering that first one, it took us a month and a half, and now we're about to release the third one, and it's taken three weeks. So it's just and this is 2 years with what I was at that point cutting edge technology. So yeah, it's interesting. And one of the things that I think it touches on your point on the human factor in AI, I think one of the things that we have to lean into moving forward, because this thing, as you said, is here and it's going to be here to stay. It's the curiosity to make sure that you know what to build. That's still something very human and something that we can all add into that. And I think that's one of the risks of AI in general for business is that just building for the sake of building, as opposed to we just building something because we know this is what we have to build, and you can only do that if you know your business inside out, and you also have quite a good knowledge of what you can do with this technology, right? So that's the two things, and that's where a person still adds a lot of value, and on just making sure that you know what to build.
Yeah, I mean, I often talk to folks about the sort of subcategories, I guess, of AI literacy and AI readiness. And so I think you're hitting on a lot of those around the mindset, right? What can it do, and am I comfortable, working with it? Do I recognize that, I can have control over my own sort of professional development, as well as my contributions to the organization, or maybe I've got entrepreneurial, goals like you, or so I think that's a key. But then obviously, yes, getting your hands dirty with the skills and maybe some specific tools. And then I would say the other thing that I always recommend to people is just leaning into the human centric and responsible AI side, just to make sure that people understand the sort of ingredients that go into making these solutions responsible by design and effective at the same time. So, for example, making sure that you understand what data you can use and what data you can't use, either because it's not publicly available data, or the customer hasn't opted in and shared that particular data. So you may have, I don't know if you have these in Spain, but here in the US, sometimes the car insurance companies will offer, well, they're not really offering it. They give you a device that can plug into the diagnostics of the car and see how you're driving and whatever. And so if you install that, you've now opted in, right? But if you somehow got that data without someone opting in, you were tracking their phone, and the phone was giving you all kinds of telemetry data and stuff like that, that would be a different story. So I think whether you're in a regulated industry, banking, financial services, insurance and things like that, or anything else in the consumer space, I just think people need to be sensitive to that. So I would just say, on top of encouraging people to get their hands dirty and experiment, some of it is about making sure that people are doing things in an ethical, fair, and responsible way.
Sure. I mean, in Europe, it's true that we have the AI regulation that we just passed. But in the end, it's just about having good people around you, right? It's just like it makes everything easier. If you just have a culture of making ethical decisions and just lead by example, then I mean, you just hope that people just see that and do design the systems the way they should be designed, right? Just don't, even if you can do it, again, it's the same thing. Even if you can build it, doesn't mean you should build it. Even if you can do it, doesn't mean you should do it. It's kind of the same question.
That is exactly what I also tell people all the time. Just because you can't, AI can do a lot of things, but you should deploy it where you should, not wherever you can, right? We know it can do more than perhaps it should, and part of that is not removing humans from decision making and things like that. But it's also about not encroaching on what humans do best, and making sure that those people are left to take on those tasks. And so we've seen plenty of situations where people have sort of over automated or over AI-ified, or whatever the verb is for putting too much AI into a process or an experience. So certainly you've got to, within your own industry, you've got to figure out where those lines need to be drawn, and just from a cultural standpoint, you've got to commit to say, yes, I know labor costs me a lot of money, but the long-term impact of removing humans from this experience is not something that not a path I'm willing to go down.
I mean, if you automate things, and automation usually means reducing human interaction, and or human like keep getting things done that before would do a person. You just as you said before, releasing that time to do other things that we do better, right? So for us, it's or at least it was a quite easy decision, because we are still we were growing, because we're a small company. We're not an established company. We still didn't have a lot of inertia or a lot of entrenched processes. So for us, changing was easier, because you just do reworking processes, and as you're still growing, what you get is more capacity to do more things, to get more customers, to do more claims, to do more of what you do. It's not about then now you have this, because you're not growing, you have this this excess capacity, then now you have to figure out what to do. And it's also kind of like, to me at least, it's a bit physical, because what you see is that most companies, or at least most leaders in established companies, don't have the courage to actually do the work that needs to be done to just improve with AI. Because to take things seriously, AI is so powerful. I mean, it's a really powerful tool, but to actually get all the benefits from AI, you need to rework a lot of things that in your company. You need to rework your processes. You need to rework your technical stack. You need to rework your organization even. I mean, maybe you don't have 3 levels or 4 levels of managers. And now you have just, it's a very horizontal organization. Then, I mean, even if you know that that's what you have to do, taking that decision and taking that personal risk from a leader standpoint in an established public company, it's just a very difficult decision to make, because you're actually jeopardizing your work, your job, for an uncertain outcome that may or may not happen. Because I mean, in one of these transformations, a lot can go wrong. So it's one of those things that I'm actually pretty grateful to have been in the position that we were, because we could easily do it, and it is still our company, so we can take those risks, and we would take them otherwise, because we got to start. We started a startup, right? So it's part of you. But I definitely see how this AI transformation is going to be even more difficult than the previous transformations with the internet or mobile or whatever. Because I mean, to get all the benefits, you have to fundamentally change the way you work. And that's not easy.
I've tried to emphasize that to companies big and small, just based on my own enterprise transformation experience. I mean, it's really difficult, and a lot of it goes back to behavior change and people and process. Back in my IBM days, we call it process reengineering. But you've got to look at the fundamentals of that and make sure your people are ready. Make sure you're staying human-centric, and I think some of that ties into the trust and transparency within the organization, not necessarily just trusting the technology, but trusting each other and how we use the technology and how we make decisions, I think, are vital to the organization. And you're right. I mean, some of these changes are going to cause you to think about how can you redesign, work itself, not even just at a process or workflow level, but as an organization, how does it make sense to even structure the organization? And maybe that hierarchical, 10-layer organization just doesn't serve you going forward as it served you previously. And so maybe it does need to be flattened to, 7 layers or whatever it is. But until you take a strategic, comprehensive look at the entire organization and how AI and automation are going to impact all the work that needs to get done, then you're just sort of nibbling at things at a lower level. And I feel like the same thing happens when bigger organizations start these pilots. They're not necessarily thinking long term about how scalable will this be as we move and try to extend this and expand across the organization. Does the pilot actually scale, or are there other contingencies? Are there other, data sources? Are there other situations that are going to prevent that pilot, which you thought was successful, and maybe it was, but metrics may be different as you try to scale across the organization. So I think the strategic piece and putting all these components together into a true AI strategy across, data, people, process, and technology, I think is crucial.
And the problem with that is that for most technologies at this point, you have success cases, and you know what the new organization that you're trying to reach looks like, or at least you have this little, I don't know, hypothesis of what it would look like. The thing with AI, and that's why I think we're having so much success in trying to tell our stories, that we actually cross that bridge, because we now can show that, and we before this episode we talked about it, and how we can show that we moved away from operational KPIs or pilots, and we can show actual P&L impact, and how we're running, in particular, for example, the homeowners business at 15% profit margin, whereas the average in Spain is 5%. There are not as many success cases still with AI, and most leaders, I think, they are still thinking about ChatGPT and giving ChatGPT to their people to just do whatever they do faster or whatever. That would be the reductionist view. But there are not, I think, yet success cases at scale that actually show what a new organization looks like, what the processes looks like, what the new P&L type looks like, and I think until there start to be a few success cases at every vertical that we won't see this massive adoption of AI in the business world. Where I think is and linking it to the beginning of the conversation, a lot of value for I don't know for the world as a whole, because I mean having ChatGPT as a $15 per month subscription, I mean it unlocks a lot of value, but it's probably not what most investors are thinking when they're thinking about the value that AI is going to bring. So it's probably going to the most of the value is going to be from transforming the industries and transforming the way we do work. And I think that I mean we will still see some I wouldn't say hostility, but we will see still some uh, some inertia that go against that deployment, because we don't know what success case looks like. Not even us. I mean, we are not even like the finished product. So when you have to have so much, how to say, when you have to have the clear goal of where you want to go, you don't have it with AI. You just know it's a continuous learning process, and I think that's where we will see the adoption lag in general.
Yeah, I think the market is starting to recognize, the difference between a shiny object and something that's generating true value. And I'm sure, VCs and private equity are recognizing that as well. And they're maturing their own, processes, everything from, due diligence to, how they provide, shared services to their portfolio companies and things like that. But I think we're through, just thinking about the Gartner, hype cycle of any technology or set of technologies. I think we're breaking through this trough of disillusionment, and we're going to start to see some real impactful innovations. I will say, I think you guys are building some really impactful things. You're innovating responsibly. I would welcome Tuio's Watson to come and be embedded in my insurance companies here in the States. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe you guys can license that and sell it to some of the legacy players who just don't have their act together yet. But Juan, I want to thank you. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're going to let you go, but thank you so much for sharing your insights with me and my audience. This has been a great conversation. So really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We are very lucky of having this conversation. They're refreshing and you just kind of like reinforcement that you're going through the right path. And yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for listening. We will see you next time.